Imagine being told that one of the most private, personal decisions about your own body wasn't actually yours to make. What if the state could step in and dictate the course of your life? In 1970, this wasn't a hypothetical question for a woman in Texas. Her courageous fight against a restrictive law would ignite a firestorm, travel all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and ultimately redefine the rights of every woman in the nation. This is the story of Roe versus Wade, a case that didn't just change a law. It changed the very fabric of American society. So, who was Jane Roe? Her real name was Norma McCorvey, but to protect her identity, she was given a legal pseudonym. Norma was a young, unmarried woman in Texas who found herself pregnant and wanting to have an abortion. But there was a huge obstacle. Texas law made abortion a crime, with a singular narrow exception to save the mother's life. Norma's life wasn't considered to be in danger in that specific medical sense, so she was legally trapped. She argued that this law was an unconstitutional violation of her fundamental rights. Standing against her was Henry Wade, the district attorney for Dallas County, who was tasked with defending the state's authority to ban abortions. The stage was set for a monumental legal battle. The case didn't start at the Supreme Court. It began in a lower federal court in Texas. Norma's lawyers made a powerful argument. They claimed that deep within the U.S. Constitution, there's a guaranteed right to privacy. This isn't a right that's explicitly written out in one sentence, but one that the courts had recognized as being implied by several amendments. They argued this right to privacy was broad enough to cover a woman's decision to choose whether or not to continue a pregnancy. The state, represented by Wade, pushed back hard. Their argument was that the state had a compelling interest, a duty even, to protect potential life, unborn fetus from the moment of conception. The Texas court actually sided with Roe, agreeing that the law was unconstitutional. But, and this is a crucial detail, they didn't issue an injunction to stop Texas from enforcing the law. This legal limbo meant that, while Roe had won on paper, abortions were still illegal in practice. The only option left was to appeal to the highest court in the land, the United States Supreme Court. Before we dive into the dramatic showdown at the Supreme Court and the final, world-changing ruling, if you're finding this story fascinating, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel. I break down these famous legal cases to show how decisions made in a courtroom can have a massive impact on our daily lives. And don't forget to share this with anyone who's curious about history, law, or how our rights are shaped and defended. Your support helps me bring more of these important stories to light. Alright, let's get back to the Supreme Court. The case of Roe v. Wade was argued not once, but 'twas a rare occurrence that signaled just how complex and divisive the issue was for the justice. Finally, on January 22, 1973, the court delivered its landmark decision by a decisive 7-2 vote. The justices sided with Jane Roe. Justice Harry Blackmun authored the majority opinion, and his legal reasoning became the foundation for abortion rights in America for the next half-century. He didn't just invent a new right out of thin air. Instead, he grounded the right to an abortion in the 14th Amendment's Due Process Clause. This clause says that no state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. The court interpreted liberty as protecting a person's fundamental right to privacy, which included the decision to terminate a pregnancy. But the court's ruling wasn't an absolute and unlimited right to abortion at any time. It was a nuanced framework based on the 3 trimesters of pregnancy. Here's how it worked. In the first trimester, the court said the abortion decision was to be left entirely to the woman and her doctor. The government had very little room to interfere. In the second trimester, the state's interest in protecting the mother's health became more compelling. So, states could regulate the abortion procedure, but only in ways that were reasonably related to maternal health, like setting standards for medical facilities. Then, in the third trimester, when the fetus was considered viable, meaning it could potentially survive outside the womb, the state's interest in protecting potential life became its strongest. At this point, states could regulate and even prohibit abortions, unless an abortion was necessary to save the life or health of the mother. So, the ultimate ruling in Roe v. Wade was that the Texas law, which banned nearly all abortions, was unconstitutional. For the very first time, the Supreme Court explicitly recognized a woman's constitutional right to make her own choice about abortion, rooted in the broader right to privacy. This was a seismic shift in American law. It invalidated similar anti-abortion laws in many other states overnight, and established a new legal standard for the entire country. The decision was immediately hailed as a major victory for the women's rights movement, but it also ignited a powerful and organized opposition that would shape American politics for decades to come. The lesson from Roe v. Wade is incredibly profound. It is a story about how one individual's fight for personal autonomy can lead to a nationwide revaluation of our most fundamental rights. The case became one of the most controversial and politically charged decisions in the history of the Supreme Court. It sparked an ongoing, passionate national debate that touches on privacy, religion, morality, and the proper role of the courts in our society. For nearly 50 years, Roe v. Wade was the law of the land, a legal precedent that defined the landscape of reproductive rights. But it also serves as a powerful reminder that even landmark legal decisions are not necessarily permanent. In 2022, in a case called Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, declaring that the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. This stunning reversal proved that the legal ground beneath our feet can shift, and the rights we hold dear can be challenged, debated, and even redefined by new generations. If this deep dive into Roe v. Wade made you think about how fragile, complex, and powerful our legal rights truly are, then please subscribe to my channel. Sharing this video helps more people understand the real-world impact of these historic court cases, and how the law is a constantly evolving force that shapes all of our lives. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.